No, it's the Patrick Netherton Show, 11:30, The Tiger. He's Rogers Hampton. I'm Patrick Netherton. And we are pleased to welcome in one of our favorites, one of the best peeps in the business. Taller than you think he is. It's always how I introduce him. Tom Hart, SEC Network lead play-by-play announcer. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. I was just thinking you led into it, but outside of the NBA channel, we might be the tallest duo on the radio airwaves currently in the country. That's a great question. T-Bob and Jacob Hester brings that average down quite 100%. A bit. How tall is McElroy's pretty tall, right? He and Kublik? I mean, that's a tall duo. No, I got him beat. We got him beat.
Okay, good. I'm happy. Yeah. Like I'll wear that as a badge of honor. I gotta have something. I'm only an honorable mention all Louisiana sports talk show, so I gotta have something better to hang my hat on.
Who voted for that? The same people who screened the callers for Coach O?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, I actually, I still believe, Tom, and I can't, I know all the LSWA, Louisiana Sports Writers Association folks, and they're great people. And I want to get them to admit to me that there were 4 sports talk shows that were nominated and that they gave first, second, and third, and they didn't actually have an honorable mention category, but they felt bad because there was one show that didn't get an honor, so they just said, let's just give them an honorable mention. Just make them feel good.
The way I read that is you are in a category all by yourself.
Yes, I am. And I'm the only one that has the word honorable anywhere in their title. So...
Well, Judge Smales had that in his title, too, and he wasn't exactly a paragon of virtue.
He was...
Also, he never slices.
Well, sir, I will tell you this. He did not allow cheating at Bushwood. So,
true.
He was... At least he had that going for him, which was nice. All right, Tom Hart doing the Kentucky...
He wrecked his dinghy.
Yes, exactly. But it looks good on you. Tom, you got the...
Hey, listen, I am just here today for Rogers' guffaws in the background.
No, that's...
Like, the count is 2, and I am all in.
No, actually, here's the thing. I actually had someone that's a friend of both of ours, used to be our producer over on the Tim Brando show, Dave Druda, text me one time and say, what's the high, the over-under every day on Rogers laughing or talking off microphone in the background? And I said it's infinity. Like, you can't put a number high enough on it. He's gonna hit every over no matter what it is. So Vegas can't set the number high enough.
Everybody needs a good wingman. Ed McMahon made a living off of it.
Yeah.
Andy Richter too. That's a good spot to be.
Yeah, Hambone is the human laugh track. He's always in the background, good for a laugh. Except at my jokes, most of the time he just looks like he wants to throw himself off a bridge when I start telling my jokes. All right, Tom, now that you've derailed my show for long enough, sir, I am always focused on the topic at hand. I never get off subject and start doing deep dives on things like whether the Three Stooges could beat Jaws and have ended Jaws early because they would have poked him in the eye. I do not do that. I'm a focused sports talk host, so let's get to the business at hand. LSU and Kentucky. Hey, look, we've had to deal with this now for a couple of weeks with the LSU. There's a very vocal part, and I don't know if it's a majority or a minority, but there is a very vocal part of the fan base and a lot of the media members in this state who are very firmly in the, all right, Coach O has to go. He's done his time is up, and are completely unwilling to give him credit for 2019 as if he didn't bring in Joe Burrow and Joe Brady to make that happen. What's the sort of outsider's perspective, not in the state of Louisiana, on Orgeron and how the fan base and the media members react to him?
That is a great question, and I will offer you 2 answers to that. When people use the label national media, of which I suppose I'm a part of, what I really hear is those that aren't educated, or better, those who have not done their homework, right? Which I am not in the camp of. Now,
Sure.
Now, if this were a talk show in Eugene, Oregon, and you wanted to talk to me about the Ducks, I would admit that I'm not your guy, right? So, quote unquote, national media that is uneducated and simply reactionary. First of all, I don't really care what they think, but they rely on stereotypes and jokes, and they don't seem to do much digging as to how the sausage is made, whether that be with LSU football or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Those of us that cover LSU on a semi-regular basis, that spend time in the facility, that know how hard it is to put together a national championship season, that know how hard it is to put together arguably the greatest season we've ever had in college football, ever.
Yep.
Have a great appreciation for what he's accomplished as a head coach. And quite frankly, most of us kind of roll our eyes at those who say, well, he got to go. Well, hold on. You can't have it both ways. If he's got to go, then give up all the memorabilia you had 2 years ago, erase the memories of being at those great games in the SEC championship, and give the money back that your business may have made on what the crowds did at memorabilia sales. That's not. You can't have it both ways. It is the same person who orchestrated the greatest season in college football, and not only the hiring of those guys, and we should not remit Dave Aranda's name from that, obviously key part, but also the relationships that you have and making sure your staff is on the same page to put everybody in position to have an unprecedented season. So I don't know if that answers your question, and Ed Orgeron certainly doesn't need me defending him. I roll my eyes when I hear that stuff. I actually had a fan say to me, man, he literally said when I was in Baton Rouge a couple weeks ago, I'm telling you, Tom, the national championship was the worst thing that ever happened to us. What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, it was the greatest year in the history of college football. You guys were on top of the world. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot of patience for that. I treat those people like loud talkers on airplanes. I just put my AirPods in and turn to my phone.
You sound like me a little bit. A couple days ago, I did actually tell those LSU fans that react in that way to pull their collective heads out of their collective asses. So I got a little. I'm not a frustrated guy. I don't tend to get too fiery, but I got a little fired up on that one. Talking to Tom Hart, Oregon Ducks expert. And let's talk about the Ducks, Tom. I mean, you're talking about a team that just had a big letdown after a nice win at Ohio State. Tell me about the Ducks prospects and what do we expect to see? What personnel moves are they making this week to get back into the winning column?
I believe Dan Fouts is the quarterback.
Okay.
And am I close? I believe they wear green and yellow.
Well, occasionally, sometimes they wear gray, sometimes they wear black, sometimes they wear white, sometimes they wear neon. Yeah.
You don't know anything either.
No, I don't. I know their coach is Mario Cristobal. I think I got that one right. Hey, tell me about this Kentucky team. Obviously, we're hearing a lot of good things. They're undefeated this year. This is a squad that seems like Stoops has kind of gotten them where he needs them to be in terms of personnel, the recruiting that he's done. We've heard a lot of good things about their interior line, both offensive and defensive lines. Tell us about this Wildcat squad that we're going to see on Saturday.
Yeah, the O-line is good. The D-line is great. The linebackers are very good. Mark Stoops looked out on his team last year and realized that even though his money has been made on the defensive side of the ball, that they needed to modernize offensively. Sounds familiar, right?
Right.
I mean, there was a little bit of Les Miles-ish to where they were in terms of being predictable offensively. Now, part of that was just bad luck, right? Lynn Bowden, who was a great slot receiver, ends up playing quarterback for him because of injuries and attrition and all that. So, that being said, hired Liam Coleman from the Los Angeles Rams. They are very much updated offensively. The cool formations that you saw from the Rams when they made the run to the Super Bowl with, bunches here and crossing routes there, and they're very talented at running back. And number one, Wan'Dale Robinson is as explosive a player in the SEC, and I really mean that. Like, if you're watching the game with somebody who's never watched football before this weekend, just tell them, no matter who has the ball, watch number one. Because what Butte does for LSU and what Robinson does for Kentucky it's insane. That being said, Wan'Dale Robinson is kind of a hybrid running back, slot, inside receiver. They still don't have the pieces to match what the offense will be. It's like they've got the Lamborghini body, but the engine's not in there yet.
Right.
So there's still a lot of room for improvement for this team at quarterback and wide receiver, explosive plays. If you did the math, Patrick, you took the offensive numbers out of the first two games, and they put up more than 500 yards of offense both times. They're very pedestrian offensively. They got a long ways to go, but they're playing with a ton of momentum, and they'll have an entire stadium behind them, and that's going to be it sounds silly to say to people who go to Death Valley every other week, but it's going to be a very real home field advantage.
Yeah. And look, you don't have to have 100,000 people to have a home field advantage, especially if your stadium's designed correctly. And that's what they have. You mentioned the D-line and how good they are, and obviously the weak point for this LSU squad is that offensive line. You work with an offensive lineman, you work with a quarterback. I know that they do film study, and I know you get to jump in on some of that as well. What are they telling you as they watch kind of from their quote-unquote expert opinions on what the issue is with this offensive line at LSU?
Well, I think that the issue is pretty deep, and it goes back to the summer. They had to fire an offensive line coach due to a minor recruiting infraction. To be perfectly blunt, most schools in the SEC would have kept that person on. Same thing with their left tackle. He'll be wearing a different uniform this week.
Yep.
There, Rosenthal at most schools with more lax rules would still be an LSU Tiger. Instead, he'll be on the other side of the ball. You have a running backs coach who tragically lost his daughter, hasn't been with the unit since after the first game. They look like all of those things, and Coach O has hinted at or even said as much. They don't look like a refined, well-oiled unit. And once you take all of that stuff into consideration, it makes sense why. It really does. Now, how much of that, Patrick, the next thing to me is what solutions do you have for being simple to protect that offensive line and or getting plays in quicker, making sure everybody's comfortable, and kind of getting the offense to its best possible point. It's pretty amazing how the balance has swung from being a run-first offense to a, pass-first 66-70% of the time. I didn't think we'd ever see that from LSU, because even Burrow's year, it was a good running game, and it was complemented with good tight end play, and there were multiple threats. I guess it helps you got 2 or 3 NFL wide receivers out there.
Well, you had 3 first-round NFL wide receivers. You had a first-round NFL tailback. You had the Heisman Trophy winner and a first-round overall number 1 pick. So, yeah, but you mentioned the tight end who went to the NFL as well. He wasn't a high draft pick. It's a lot to try to kind of turn around and get going. I'm curious, we were all kind of watching last year, the COVID year. How much stock do you put in what the results and kind of what went down in the COVID year? Because I kind of discount everything that happened in 2020, and I felt kind of bad for any coaches that got let go after 2020 because they were all put in basically an impossible situation. How much weight do you throw behind LSU going 5-5 last year?
I can't believe. Listen, that maybe there are certain scenarios and every situation is different, but I couldn't believe coaches lost their job last year. I mean, this is our entire country was in disarray. So cut these guys some slack who've never had to deal with this ever.
Yeah.
There is no blueprint. Like you can say, okay, let's think of it this way. As terrible as it is for the state of Louisiana when a Category 4 or 5 comes through, and in turn the football team has to relocate, you can't say that's never been done before, right? I mean, there actually is a notebook that says, all right, here's how we did it in 05, and here's how we did it 2 years ago, and there can be a plan put together for a catastrophic situation. There was no plan put in place for COVID. And what I found, and what I think talking to coaches, the biggest frustration for a lot of these guys was, and I just drove by Keeneland, the great horse track here in Lexington. It's going to be packed, but LSU fans are on the way up. That's a great way to spend your Friday, your Saturday. It's awesome. But they were like a jockey that didn't have a whip, right? And maybe that's a bad analogy to use for a coach and a football player, but they lost a lot of their motivational ability because they felt like, and this was all the sports really, Patrick, they felt like they couldn't be the tough guy.
Yeah.
Frank Martin is a great example. Everyone sees him on the sideline, South Carolina basketball, and you see him rant and rave like a lunatic, and you see that's his motivational style. But what you don't see is after the game, pregame, and practice, where he puts his arm around the guy after he's just kicked him in the butt a couple of times.
Yeah.
They weren't even allowed to have that kind of personal contact to put their arm around. So a lot of these guys felt like they couldn't kick him in the butt because they couldn't offer that balance on the other side. And the biggest swing of the pendulum was if a guy didn't like how he was being treated or wasn't having fun or wasn't motivated, he could just wash his hands of the whole thing and tap out. No, I'm good. I'm going to opt out. And I had no problem with that from a personal health situation, but that's really hard from a coaching standpoint to then coach your team up as many are used to doing.
Tom Hart, play-by-play voice for the SEC Network. You will see his work against Kentucky. All right, last thing before I let you go, you just mentioned Keeneland, and give us the Lexington scouting report. What are you and your crew eating? What's the good place to eat? You mentioned going and checking out the track. Give us the Lexington scouting report.
Well, ours is still being developed, and the beauty of it is we can make some last second adjustments, and we can audible. We want to see what the defense is going to do. Okay, so we're gonna make some play calls at the line of scrimmage. But what I would, if you're listening and you're on your way or you're coming this weekend, I would highly encourage you to, whether it's Friday afternoon or Saturday. That's why the game is at night, because Keeneland is during the day. They're going to have great crowds out there. You're going to see world-class horse racing. It's fun to put a couple bucks down on the ponies. I'm sure the Commonwealth would appreciate it. That's their educational system foundation of funding is where all that money goes. So go see the ponies. You got Tony's Steakhouse, which is my favorite by far. Tell David I sent you. That's right down by Rupp Arena. It's downtown. This is one of the few SEC cities that really has a great downtown that you can hang out in, and it's got plenty of bars you can walk to once you get out of Tony's and walk up the street. So Carson's is a great place for brunch if you want to take that in Saturday morning before you go out to Keeneland, get a couple bloodies in you, and then go see the ponies. It's tough to beat, and the weather is supposed to be absolutely perfect.
That's fantastic. You know what the good news is, Tom? Not only if you go to the racetrack, not only will your money go to support the Kentucky educational system, but from what I understand, the Kentucky educational system shares books with the horses. So you'll get the same level of education out there as most of the Kentucky fans get, most of the Kentucky residents get in a day-to-day basis.
I gave you a courtesy laugh. I feel like that was my one.
That's okay. That's okay. You notice Rogers didn't give me anything over here. He gave me a rim shot, but that's his. He does rim shots almost sarcastically at me now. It's no longer to accentuate the joke. It's more like, did you hear what this idiot just said? You know.
Hey, listen. Listen, that's between you two. All right, whatever you guys want to do in the privacy of your own studio, feel free to do it.
Yeah, Tom, you're the best. Have a great call this weekend. Obviously, tell Cole and Jordan we said hello. Y'all are the best, and we look forward to your call, brother.
All right, looking forward to it. Rogers, be good. Have a great weekend, dude.
Good to talk to you, brother.
There you go. You got him to actually get on the microphone. Tom Hart, lead play-by-play announcer for the SEC Network.